I've been starting this series of interviews with the same question for everybody.
Yes.
How did you meet Paul Smoker?
Early 90s when he moved to town, he found me pretty quick. I was familiar with his records, or some of them anyway at the time, and somewhat familiar with his work, not a lot. And he came and we clicked immediately, and he started performing at the store on a regular basis with students, with some of the musicians that are coming into town, with different groups. One with Vinnie Golia's Halloween Quartet. Fonda played with him. He sat in with Peter Brotzman. We had Peter Brotzman, William Parker here. He sat in on that. So he was an integral part of where I went and how I moved through the music that I've been presenting for 36 years. Seems a little hard to grasp. So it was a key part of how I moved forward in presenting new music. It's almost always been around newly written work, no matter how easy to listen to or challenging it may be. It's almost always, not always, newly written work.
Yeah. I've gotten some great Paul Smoker first impression stories from Phil Haynes hearing the tape at Kohn College to Michael McNeil talking with him right before he was going to audition at Nazareth. You said Paul found you, and you kind of heard of him, but what was your first impression?
Well, as soon as I heard him play, and I don't recall which show it was, one of the Bop Shop shows. I should have researched to figure out which one, but Robert would have known. Yeah. And his playing was just outstanding. You close your eyes and you hear Paul play, and for a minute you think it's just free. Then you realize you're listening to Louis Armstrong, Woody Shaw, Lester Bowie, and it all kind of in this one beautiful presence. He'll do a tune called Summertime. It'll take you a little bit to realize it's summertime.
You talked about, I'll say this. We can talk more about his performances of the store in a minute, but, came here in the late 90s. You knew him for about 20 years. What was your guys' friendship like, and how did that grow and evolve?
Close, not close, but, always talked about music and life in general and how you related your art to the day-to-day living. And Paul was the essence of that to me. He was just a beautiful person, and, Beverly too, just caring, thinking. He's a thinking man. He thought a lot about how he taught and how he lived his life. The student groups he'd bring to the shop were just outstanding. And of course, I don't recall half of them, but some of them are going to be here, this weekend. But he really knew how to bring out something in the musicians and me and the people that surround himself. Robert and people like that, so.
What did you learn from Paul in your time together?
Patience. First him, then Jan, but and I was not a very patient person in the early days, if anybody out there knows me. And to be open about how you hear things, pretty much, and that opened up a lot to me. I was already listening to a lot of that kind of stuff already since the 70s. My diet in the 70s was punk rock and Ornette Coleman, so figure that out. Yeah. But it was just one step in that direction of really kind of understanding improvised music. Because to be a good improviser, you have to know the standards. You have to know the book. You have to know how to deconstruct and then reconstruct. And it's hard, to really master that. And he did, completely.
In that vein, I wanted to explore more about how he informed the type of music you have here at the store and how that culture, in a lot of ways, went through him. It was that, as you said, the combination of it, there's bebop, there's classical, there's new classical, there's the European avant-garde component, and all of that stuff.
Jazz history, too.
It's jazz history. And I just want to explore more about how the Smoker sound informed what you do at the store.
His sound changed a little bit here and there based on the work, based on who his students were and the musicians were. You know, with Vinny Scolia's group, that really was a different approach. And Paul was able to master different ways to present the material that he needed a material. He worked differently with students. And I just listened. That's all you do is listen. And I was aware of an awful lot of stuff, and he hit me to new people that I didn't know, and vice versa. There was cats that I knew about that he didn't know about. So we were also an exchange of, music. Not being a player, I can't really have a good dialogue about, charts and changes, but I can hear it. That's what kind of made me interested in such a diverse swath of music in this joint.
You talked about some of the notable gigs that he performed at the old store and here. I wanted to ask about the album recording. Paul Smoker No Tet live at Bop Shop Records. How well do you remember that?
Very little. Very little.
Did you know it was going to be an album?
Oh, yeah. Well, no. We never go in planning a record. It just, you sort of see what comes out, as you know. And Matt was a master at the head. That binaural recording system, he was able to capture what we did in that atrium space, which is huge open area. I remember when Liebman came one time, Lieb was just almost off-putting. He was like kind of not happy to be there in some ways. But I remember him walking up, put the horn to his lips, and he just blew a few notes, and this big-ass smile came across his face. He said, okay, I can work in this room. And that's that. The atrium had its own sound. We were fortunate to be able to use that space, and we're real fortunate now to have a good sounding room in here, thanks to you. But
well, you might not have remembered a ton about the gig, but I'm sure you've revisited the album afterwards and had a chance to listen to it. Well, what'd you think of it, Phil? And I asked Phil this, and because I asked him about it, and he says, looking back on it, there were some really, this is a paraphrase, but seminal and important moments in there. So when you go back and listen to it, what's your takeaway from it?
Oh, it's been a long time since I listened to it. Rick Petrie played some the other night on Tuesday, and he opened his set with that on WGMC. It was really beautiful. Paul's playing was just so organic with the group. And again, I can't even remember the group. You probably remember the group because you've seen this. The most interesting time Paul played was when he basically died and was brought back to life and slapped a little machine on him to get him alive. The guy had no pulse. But when it was an experimental thing, and I'm not recalling everything as I should, but I remember the gig. His first gig after being in the hospital for so long, having the heart transplant, and then having this device, which you had to plug in every night, to keep him alive, and kept him alive for another decade. The first concert he played anywhere was at the Atrium. And the audience was all the damn doctors. It was pretty funny, It was just this group of medical experts seeing how Paul dealt with, coming back to life, basically. And it was great. And it was another bonding experience. He spoke at my anniversary as well. There's probably footage of that someplace. I think it was the 25th. I've had too many. I can't remember,
I have a couple more questions about Paul, but I wanted to ask about the concert at the time of us recording. It is mere hours away, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, Vinny comes in tonight, so everyone's amassing to town.
Why'd you want to do it? What about now made sense in this format?
Well, first off, it just needed to be done. We tried last year, and the dates didn't line up. So we've lost a few folks that wanted to come, which is unfortunate. but the spirit's there. And Paul meant so much to so many musicians and so many people in general, students and stuff. And hence the interviews with Mike McNeil. And yes, it just was very important that he was here. I lost track of the question.
That was fine.
All right.
How do you remember Paul?
As a friend. He was a good friend. He was someone to talk to when I was feeling down, and vice versa.
Yes.
We had lots of great conversations together, mostly about art and music, because that's what we both live, at different ends of that spectrum. But,
And you touched on it a couple times, but what do you think his legacy is?
Wow, that's a tough question. His legacy is something that will exist for a long time amongst certain audiences. And I'm hoping that audience will grow a little bit anyway. He operated a little bit on the fringes of things, but that's how new music is written, and that's how it is explored. Charlie Parker was on the fringes. People hated Charlie when he first came out, and now he's like the standard, and vice versa. There's many, over time, as things changed and developed and moved forward, he's part of that happened, especially his work with Braxton, and that was just opening up. Rick played some Braxton too with Smoker and Joe Fonda. So
Cool.
yeah, the Charlie Parker Project.
Yeah.
So he taught me to listen closer. I already was, but I mean, he was able to offer a different way of hearing things. That he did to everybody. That's his legacy, I think, right there. His ability to make you listen differently. And that's what he taught me. Besides just being a cool cat, so.
Anything I didn't ask about that you'd like to add?
Not that I can think of right now. I'm looking forward to seeing some old friends. Huh?
It's 8 in the morning.
Yeah, I know.
Looking forward to seeing some old friends.
Well, yeah, it'd be good to see some of these cats. I mean, Vinny's coming from L.A.
Yep.
Damon's driving in from Chicago with Jake. So there's 3 or 4 students, and then Sunday's going to be a little bit different here. There are other folks that are able to make it Sunday that could, like Kristen, I think, is going to make it Sunday in the afternoon to play, maybe. We'll have the drum kit set up and the piano's tuned, so it'll be very, 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 very loose here at the store. It's just, Phil's got a schedule of tunes, but as in any improvisational situation, anything can change.